Most traders lose money not because they pick bad trades, but because they exit good ones too early. You watch the price move in your favor, your heart starts racing, and a voice in your head says take the money before it disappears. That voice is not wisdom. That voice is fear wearing the costume of discipline, and it has cost retail traders more profit than any bad trade ever could. Today we are going to dismantle that voice completely, understand exactly where it comes from, and give you the mental framework to stop letting psychology steal from your account. Early profit taking is not the same as having a tight stop or a conservative strategy. It is the pattern of exiting a trade before your original plan said to exit, purely because of emotional discomfort. You set a target at resistance, price moves halfway there, and you close the trade because you are afraid the profit will disappear. The trade had nothing technically wrong with it. Your emotions made the decision, not your analysis. That distinction matters more than most traders ever realize. The problem is not that you took profit. The problem is that fear made the decision instead of your trading plan. There is a massive difference between closing a trade because price action tells you to, and closing a trade because you cannot handle the anxiety of watching open profit fluctuate. One is intelligent trading. The other is your nervous system overriding your strategy. And every time you let fear make that call, you train your brain to keep doing it. This behavior compounds over time in a very destructive way. Every trade you exit early and then watch continue to your original target teaches your brain that your instincts were wrong. But your brain does not record it that way. It records that you took profit and felt relief, which means it rewards the fearful behavior. You become increasingly controlled by the need for that relief feeling, and increasingly disconnected from the logic of your trading plan. Research in behavioral finance shows that traders who exit early do so an average of 37% before their intended target. That is not a small number. If your system has a risk-reward ratio of 1 to 3, but you consistently exit at 1 to 1.8 because of psychological discomfort, your system is no longer a 1 to 3 system in practice. You have quietly destroyed your edge without changing a single rule in your written strategy. Understanding that early profit taking is a behavioral pattern, not a one-time mistake, is the first step toward fixing it. Patterns have roots. Roots can be traced, and once you know where something comes from, you have real power to change it. So let us trace where this pattern actually comes from inside the human brain. The brain does not process gains and losses equally, and this is not a motivational concept. It is hard neuroscience. When you experience a financial gain, your brain releases a moderate amount of dopamine. When you experience a financial loss of the same amount, your brain activates the amygdala with roughly twice the intensity. The pain of losing money is neurologically stronger than the pleasure of gaining the same amount of money. This asymmetry is called loss aversion, and it was documented by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky in their landmark 1979 prospect theory research. The critical point that most people miss is that loss aversion does not only activate when you actually lose money. It activates when you anticipate the possibility of losing money you currently have. The moment a trade goes into profit, your brain immediately begins calculating the risk of losing that unrealized profit, and it treats that risk like a current threat. Your brain cannot tell the difference between unrealized profit and cash in your hand. Once a trade is profitable, your nervous system treats that floating profit as owned money, and the idea of the market taking it back triggers the same threat response as someone physically stealing from you. Your heart rate increases, cortisol floods your system, and your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational decision-making, begins to lose its authority to the amygdala. This is why traders often describe feeling physically uncomfortable while holding winning trades. The discomfort is real. It is not weakness or lack of confidence. It is your ancient survival brain responding to perceived threat in the only way it knows how, by urging you to eliminate the risk immediately. Taking the profit feels like solving the problem, because it eliminates the threat your brain has manufactured around that open position. The problem is that your brain's threat assessment system was calibrated for a world where hesitation could get you killed by a predator, not a world where patience is rewarded by financial markets. You are running prehistoric software in a modern environment. Recognizing this does not fix it automatically, but it removes the self-blame, and it points you toward the correct solution, which is retraining the response rather than trying to willpower your way through it. Every trader has a memory, and that memory is not balanced. Your brain gives disproportionate weight to recent events when forming expectations about the future. If your last 3 trades reversed before hitting your target, your brain now treats reversal as the expected outcome for your current trade, even if your entire historical backtest says that is statistically unlikely. This is recency bias, and it is one of the most consistent destroyers of trading performance. Recency bias is particularly dangerous because it feels like learning. After watching 3 trades reverse, the mental narrative becomes I am learning from experience and adjusting my approach. But you are not learning from a statistically meaningful sample. You are treating 3 data points as though they represent the entire system. In a domain with high randomness like financial markets, 3 consecutive outcomes tell you almost nothing reliable about the next outcome. The practical effect is that recency bias causes you to abandon your plan at exactly the wrong time. Your system was built from hundreds or thousands of trades. Its edge is statistical, meaning it only expresses itself over a large sample. When you start making exit decisions based on the last 3 trades, you are essentially letting a tiny, noise-dominated sample override a carefully constructed, signal-based system. You are throwing away your edge in real time. Traders who track their exit points carefully often discover a striking pattern. Their early exits cluster after periods of drawdown or consecutive losses. The psychology is consistent. Recent pain raises the sensitivity to future pain, which causes earlier exits, which reduces performance, which causes more pain, which causes even earlier exits. It is a self-reinforcing cycle that does not break until the trader consciously intervenes with a structured process. Breaking recency bias requires what behavioral researchers call outcome detachment, which means separating the evaluation of your decision quality from the outcome of any individual trade. A good exit is one that followed your plan. A bad exit is one that did not, regardless of whether the trade would have gone on to hit your target or reverse. When you train yourself to measure decision quality instead of outcome quality, recency bias loses its grip, because recent outcomes stop being relevant to how you evaluate your own performance. There is another layer beneath fear that most trading psychology content never addresses directly, and that is the role of ego in profit-taking behavior. Many traders take profit early, not primarily because they fear losing money, but because they need to be right. Locking in a profit, even a small one, confirms that you made a correct call. Holding the trade open keeps the outcome uncertain, which means your identity as a skilled trader remains unconfirmed for longer than your ego is comfortable with. This is particularly common among traders who define their self-worth through their trading results. When your sense of competence is tied to being correct, an open winning trade creates an uncomfortable state of suspended judgment. You know the trade is in your favor, but the market has not yet delivered its final verdict. Closing early delivers that verdict immediately, and on terms your ego finds acceptable. The profit becomes proof that you were right, and that proof is more valuable in that moment than the additional profit your plan was targeting. The irony is that this ego protection mechanism systematically underperforms. The traders who need to be right most urgently are the ones who take the smallest profits and hold the largest losses. Losses stay open because closing them would confirm being wrong, while winners get closed early to lock in confirmation of being right. This creates a portfolio of behavior that is the exact opposite of what produces long-term profitability, which is cutting losses quickly and letting winners run fully. Studies of retail trader behavior from brokers who analyzed millions of accounts consistently find that retail traders close winning trades significantly faster than losing trades. The percentage of time that retail positions are held when in profit is substantially shorter than the percentage of time they are held when in loss. This is not a small statistical quirk. It is a massive, systematic bias driven by ego and loss aversion working together to reverse what a profitable approach actually requires. Fixing the ego component requires a fundamental shift in how you define success as a trader. Success cannot be defined by whether any individual trade works out. Success must be defined by whether you executed your process correctly across a large sample of trades. This reframe is uncomfortable for the ego because it removes the ability to get credit for individual wins. But it is the only definition of success that is actually consistent with building a sustainable, profitable trading career. Markets themselves participate in conditioning traders toward early exits, and this happens through a very specific mechanism. In volatile or ranging market conditions, trades that approach targets frequently reverse before completing. This happens enough times that traders who experience it during their formative period develop a conditioned response. When price approaches my target, it is probably about to reverse, so I should exit now. This conditioning is entirely rational, given the specific experiences that created it. The problem is that it does not generalize correctly. The market conditions that created the conditioning may no longer be present. Your system may have been designed for trending conditions where targets are hit at a much higher rate, but your nervous system does not store those nuances. It stores the emotional memory of watching profit disappear, and it fires that memory every time you see an open profit approaching a target zone. This is classical conditioning applied to trading behavior. The target zone becomes the trigger. The conditioned response is anxiety and the urge to exit, and the reinforcement is the relief of closing the trade. You have been trained by your own market experiences to behave in a way that reduces your performance. This is one of the reasons why traders who learn in difficult market environments often carry destructive habits into better market conditions for years. Overcoming market-induced conditioning requires deliberate exposure with corrective feedback. Concretely, this means tracking every instance where you felt the urge to exit early, recording whether price actually reached your target after you closed, and reviewing that data regularly. Most traders who do this exercise discover that their conditioned fear of the target zone is statistically unfounded. Their system actually completes to target at a rate that makes early exits clearly unprofitable over a sample. Seeing that data does not remove the emotion, but it creates a counter-narrative that the rational brain can use when the conditioned response fires. Another powerful technique used by professional traders is pre-commitment, which means making exit decisions before the trade is open. When you are not under the influence of open profit anxiety, you write down exactly where you will exit, under exactly what conditions, and you treat deviations from that pre-commitment as the actual mistake, regardless of outcome. Pre-commitment shifts the locus of control away from your in-the-moment emotional state and back to your calm, analytical planning state. Professional traders and institutional trading desks do not consistently outperform retail traders because they have better entry signals. In many cases, retail traders using technically sound systems have entry accuracy that is competitive with professional benchmarks. The performance gap comes almost entirely from trade management, and specifically from the ability to hold winning positions through normal fluctuation without exiting based on emotional discomfort. Institutional traders operate with several structural advantages that reduce the psychological pressure on any individual position. Position sizing is done at the portfolio level so that no single trade produces the kind of account percentage swings that trigger strong emotional responses in retail traders. Risk is distributed. The outcome of any one trade is genuinely less significant because the portfolio contains dozens of positions across multiple strategies and timeframes. Retail traders operating a single account with concentrated positions experience full emotional intensity on every trade. When a single trade represents 5% of your account, every tick matters emotionally. When that same trade represents 0.3% of a diversified institutional portfolio, the emotional stakes are fundamentally lower. This is not just a mindset difference. It is a structural design difference that retail traders can partially replicate by sizing their positions conservatively enough that no single trade outcome feels existentially significant. Professional traders also have extensive journaling and performance review infrastructure. They know their statistical edge, they know their average win rate, their average risk reward, and what their equity curve looks like across thousands of trades. This knowledge acts as an anchor during periods of uncertainty. When a trade is approaching a target and the urge to exit early arises, a trader who knows their system completes to target 58% of the time has a concrete data point to lean against the emotional pressure. Retail traders without that data have no anchor and are fully at the mercy of their emotional state. The professional difference is ultimately a difference in infrastructure, process infrastructure, data infrastructure, and psychological infrastructure built through deliberate practice over time. None of these things are genetically determined or inaccessible to retail traders. They require effort, consistency, and a willingness to treat trading as a serious craft rather than a quick path to income. But they are entirely learnable, And the traders who do that work consistently close the performance gap that psychology otherwise creates. Every early exit you make is not just a smaller profit on one trade. It is a vote for the version of yourself that lets fear run your decisions. And those votes accumulate into a trading career that never reaches its potential, not because your analysis was wrong, but because your psychology kept you from executing what your analysis actually told you to do. The market does not reward people who need comfort. It rewards people who can sit inside uncertainty and let their edge play out. Start tracking your exits. Start measuring your decision quality, not your outcomes. Build the infrastructure that gives your rational brain something to hold on to when your emotional brain fires. That is the actual work of becoming consistently profitable, and it starts with understanding exactly what we covered today.